Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Jordan Hess, Legislative Affairs Director for Washington City, and we're excited to welcome you all to the brand new George Washington Plaza in Washington City. For those of you who are not aware, just 2 days ago, April 19th, was the 250th anniversary of the first shots of the Revolutionary War, which were fired at Lexington and Concord. And we're now 250 years later. And to celebrate the America 250, we've had a lot of collaboration. There's an American 250 committee, and it consists of United We Pledge and the Liberty Village, Tech Ridge, Greater Zion, our Chambers of Commerce, the Daughters of the American Revolution, Utah Tech, Washington City, the city of St. George, all of the cities across the county, our county commissioners. We've all come together because this is something worth celebrating, this American experiment that has lasted 250 years, and we are the greatest country in the world, and we should all feel proud to live here in the United States of America. This also happens to be the kickoff for Washington City's annual Cotton Days celebration. And this year's theme is Patriots and Pioneers, honoring the American spirit. We wanted to tie in not only our Dixie history, but also our American history into Cotton Days. So we thought this would be the perfect opportunity to kick off Cotton Days here at George Washington Plaza. And I'd like to welcome our mayor, Kress Staheli. We have our council members, Troy Belliston, Brett Henderson, Kurt Ivey, Craig Coates here. We also have from Santa Clara City, Janine Burton. From the city of St. George, Michelle Tanner, Jimmy Hughes, Danielle Larkin. Looks like we have Mayor Michelle Randall here. And we have from the County Commission, we have Gil, we have Victor Iverson, Gil Almquist, and looks like we have Senator Vickers here from our state legislature. We have our state school board representative, Joanne Brenton, and we also have Steve Kemp. Sorry, Steve. Steve is here as well. So we have a lot of dignitaries here to celebrate tonight, and we want to welcome everybody here. At this time, we're going to have an invocation by the St. George City Mayor, Michelle Randall, followed by the raising of the colors by our Marine Corps, and they are accompanied by the Sons of the American Revolution. As the colors are being raised, we will have a national anthem performed by Emily, Alex, and Zachary Brown. And then we will have a Pledge of Allegiance, and that will be by Commissioner Gil Almquist.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we can gather here on this beautiful spring evening and collaborate with the two cities of St. George and Washington. We're so grateful for this county that we live in and for this nation that we live in, for the freedoms that we enjoy. We're grateful for this beautiful statue that will be unveiled, and so grateful for the artist, Jerry Anderson, and all of the work that he's put in. We pray that we will always be grateful for the freedoms we have, for this part of thy vineyard we live in, and that we will all be good stewards of this homeland that we enjoy. And we say these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave, of the brave.
That was beautiful. Please, everyone, join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
For those of you who are unaware, Emily Brown is the wife of our Attorney General, Derek Brown, and those were two of their children, Alex and Zachary. We're so grateful that our Attorney General, Derek Brown, would come all the way from Salt Lake to join us. He will be addressing us later. We're so grateful for the Browns. Thank you. Now, most of you probably haven't had a chance yet to walk around this plaza. We tried to incorporate a lot of symbolism from the life of George Washington. And as you get to know this plaza better, you will better understand that symbolism and what each different detail means. And to help us to understand that, we have with us our Washington City Youth Council tonight. We have 4 members, our Mayor, Katie Allen, Maylee Belknap, who's the city manager, and council members Megan Kirk and Taylor Brown. Each of them will take a little bit of time to explain some of the symbolism that you will see here in George Washington Plaza.
Hi guys, I'm Katie Allen. I'm the mayor of the Washington City Youth Council, and I'm very excited to speak with you guys and to speak to you guys today. The myth about George Washington and the cherry tree is one of the most famous and oldest, it's the best known myth about George Washington. However, so as you know, this is fiction, but let me just remind you what this is. So when George Washington was 6 years old, he received a hatchet as a gift. Soon after, he used it to damage one of his father's cherry trees. His father was very angry when he found out about this, and when he asked George Washington if he had done this, George Washington didn't lie. He just said, "I cannot lie. I did cut the cherry tree with my hatchet." Surprisingly, his father wasn't angry. Instead, he embraced him and declared that his son's honesty was worth more than 1,000 trees. This enduring tale sets a standard of morality that all of us should aim for, as George Washington, even though he did make a mistake, he told the truth to his father. Now, as I said earlier, this myth is fiction. It was the invention of a 19th century bookseller by the name of Mason Locke Weems. Mason published it in the 5th edition of a book about George Washington's life, nearly 7 years after George Washington died. So we can't really tell if it was true or false. And honestly, who knows? It could be true. In the farm where George Washington grew up, which was Ferry Farm, he surely watched his father cut down many trees. And when he received his own hatchet, he may have tried the same thing. So who knows? So, as you guys may be wondering, is this true or not? The official word from Mount Vernon, and yeah, so from Mount Vernon and Ferry Farm, where he grew up, is that no, this didn't happen. It's just a story, just like I said. However, this tale has endured for 200 years and has become one of the many core beliefs that Americans have about George Washington. It's been depicted in especially political cartoons, but also children's books, magazines, and many other things. So, whether or not it's true, we're really excited to have cherry trees planted all around the plaza because despite each culture's many different beliefs about the symbolism of cherry trees often represent rebirth, renewal, the start, like a new beginning, and just the start of spring. And often, so I don't know if many of you guys know this, but the blooms of a cherry blossom, it's not alive for very long. And this really depicts that life is fleeting. But just like the cherry blossom, life is beautiful. And cherry blossoms really show that you should cherish the moment and just appreciate the beauty in each second of life. The act of planting these cherry trees as a memorial, really, and nurturing them, really show how they really show the love and care that goes into this individual. And we're really excited to have these planted here so that we can always honor our first president, George Washington, who our city was named after.
Thank you, Katie. My name is Maylee Belknap. I'm the city manager for the Washington City Youth Council, and I'm so honored to be here today to speak to you about one of my favorite things, which are flowers in George Washington. So there are about 100 different species of roses and thousands of identifiable varieties. The first cultivation of roses was documented about 5,000 years ago in China. President George Washington was one of the very first breeders in the United States. He named a rose variety Mary Washington, paying homage to his sweet mother. George Washington was born February 22nd, 1732, at his parents' plantation on Poked Creek in Westmoreland County. They were educated young and at home. George finished up his studies at about the time he was 15. From the time he was a young man, he was always very interested in the land and its conservation. However, all that had to be put on hold for 40 plus years while he was involved with creating the wonderful United States. In 1797, after the war, he returned to his plantation, Mount Vernon, to finally become the horticulturalist he always wanted to be. Back in Virginia, he built a gorgeous greenhouse and oversaw planting food and other crops. The unusual thing that he did was to also plant what he called pleasure gardens. These had flowers of every color and roses that were available at the time. He planted native roses, old blush, eglantine, and the highly fragrant damask rose, which offers a profession of pink flowers in the spring. At that time, the petals and hips were used for food, plate garnishes, prized rose water, which was known as perfume. According to President Reagan's proclamation, George hybridized a rose, paying homage to his sweet mother, the Mary Washington rose, and rosette, which is still available today. It is known for its rose oil, rose water, and used for cooking. February is the birth month of America's two favorite presidents. Both great men, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, are connected to roses, both directly and indirectly. Both men would have been thrilled when President Ronald Reagan on October 7, 1986, proclaimed the rose as the official national floral emblem of the United States. I can picture General Washington enjoying his gardens as much as many us do, but his time was short. He contracted a terrible sore throat in the fall of 1799, and he passed to Heaven's Garden on December 14, 1799. If you wish to honor a president by planting roses, the General Washington, along with the Maryton Washington flower, are still available today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Megan Kirk, and I'm a senior on the Washington City Youth Council, and I'm excited to speak with you today as well. There he oversaw many of his estate farms, operations like the plantation and dealing with the farms. Some of the most historical and significant gates established at Mount Vernon are the Bowling Green Gates, the West Gate, and the Texas Gate. While these gates are primarily used as entrances, they also serve to honor the life of George Washington. Bowling Green Gate is the entrance at Mount Vernon and sits between the 12-acre field and the Bowling Green. Mount Vernon visitors in the 18th century first glimpsed the mansion as they passed through the West Gate. It is approximately 1 mile from the West Gate to the Bowling Green Gate. Upon entrance, guests are provided with their first glimpse of the mansion. The drive then meandered through the trees, eventually passing the Bowling Green Gate, circling around the stable to the south lane, and joining the mansion circle. The original mansion was constructed in 1734, and Washington later expanded it between 1758 and 1778. The estate was named by Washington's half-brother Lawrence, after Edward Vernon, who was in the Royal Navy and served in Parliament. The term Bowling Green is derived from its frequent association with the turfed circular space used for ball games popular in Europe and America. The location of the West Gate is marked by two small white structures known as porters' lodges. These buildings were originally constructed in 1812 by Bushrod Washington, the general's nephew, who owned Mount Vernon from 1802 until 1829. The porters' lodges were reconstructed by Mount Vernon Ladies Association in the late 19th century. The Texas Gate was built in 1899 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of George Washington's death. When thousands of visitors began to arrive at Mount Vernon via electric trolley during the last decade of the 19th century, it quickly became apparent that the estate needed an official entrance gate to handle the ever-increasing crowds. The citizens of Texas adopted the project under the leadership of Francis C. Maxey, Vice Regent for Texas. School children donated nickels and dimes, while members of the Masonic lodges organized a grassroots effort that swept across the state. The Texas Gate was dedicated on December 14, 1899. These are the gates on the beautiful historical plantation of George Washington's Mount Vernon, and each honors his life and legacy. Thank you.
My name is Taylor Brown, and it is a great day to speak to you all today. The Washington Standard flag uses a blue field and 13 white stars, representing a new constellation. It was adopted by Congress in 1777 as a component of the now familiar Star-Spangled Banner. It's known as a standard due to its modest size, measuring about 2 feet. It is also known as the earliest surviving 13-star American flag, with the stars representing the union of the original 13 American colonies, comprised within the national ensign's blue field. While the one we have here raised at half-mast is not the one that flew above him in 1777, this flag would have signaled the presence of the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Armies, General George Washington. This flag flew wherever he went, whether in battle, at home, or on a trip. In short, if George Washington went, this flag followed. It was donated by the descendants of George Washington's sister, Betty Washington Lewis, to the Valley Forge Historical Society in 2003, making its first ever public display in Philadelphia, as well as its first ever appearance in Pennsylvania in many, many decades on Flag Day 2018. This flag was also chosen to be the U.S. Navy's Union Jack flag from June 14th, 1777 to May 1st, 1795. We are honored to have it flying above us and above our President, George Washington. Thank you.
We have a phenomenal youth council. Thank you so much for enlightening us tonight and educating us on the symbolism of the George Washington Plaza. We have what I would call the best mayor in Washington County. And we're really proud to have him with us tonight. This has been a collaboration between the county, the city of St. George, and the city of Washington, and working together. This became a reality very quickly. It was only a couple months ago that we sat around a table to plan this whole plaza and what would be included, what it would look like. And we contracted with an amazing builder and designer, J.S. Costanza and Land Trends, and we're so grateful for the work that they did. I'm grateful for the leadership of our mayor, Mayor Kress, Staheli, who made this project a reality. He was born and raised here in Washington City, is married to his wife, Lynette, and they've raised their 4 children here in Washington. We're so grateful to have him as our mayor, and at this time I would like to turn the time over to our mayor, Kress Staheli.
You know, he gets paid to say that stuff about me. But how about that youth council? So impressive. How about a round of applause? I think they really nailed it. When you drive by or you spend some time here and you look at the symbolism, it just really hits home more. I felt chills not only when they gave the description, the background on those elements, but also with the Brown family. Thanks for sharing your talents. They're absolutely wonderful. I'll start with this. Happy Patriots Day. And the reason I know it's Patriots Day is the Boston Marathon was today. So happy Patriots Day, and absolutely a fitting day to cut the ribbon of George Washington Plaza and unveil the George Washington statue. This celebrates America's 250th birthday and our pioneer heritage as we kick off Cotton Days. To begin, it's my honor to introduce the 2025 Cotton Days Grand Marshal. Lamar Miller is a name that resonates deeply with the heart and soul of Washington City. Born and raised right here over 93 years ago, Lamar is likely the oldest living lifelong resident of our city. His life has been one of unwavering service and dedication. He served on the Washington City Council in the 1970s, helping shape the community we have today. He was also a charter member of the Washington City Lions Club in 1969 and has served faithfully as part of the Lions Club for over 5 decades, continuously at events like Cotton Days and the Dixie Roundup and others. Beyond civic contributions, Lamar proudly served his country during the Korean War conflict, a reflection of his love for both his hometown and his nation. As a profession, a lifelong rancher and cattleman, Lamar still works the land with the same devotion he shows in every aspect of his life. Some of you will remember this. He was the owner of the property of the Burger Stop. You remember the iconic red roof, the larger-than-life pecan tree, the iconic yellow and brown tables and benches, and the nearby ditch where natural green spring water flowed constantly into the Mill Creek. What makes Lamar's story even more inspiring is the resilience he has shown throughout his life. Despite having polio as a youth, a condition that affected his legs and ability to walk later in life, Lamar has never let it slow him down. His determination and spirit have carried him through the years, serving as an example of perseverance, much like the community that he spent his life in. What Lamar cherishes most? His family. Married to his beloved Jean Holt for over 50 years. Together they raised their 2 sons right here in Washington City. These days, one of the family's greatest joy is spending time at their cabin on Canara Mountain. He embodies the values of hard work, service, and community that we hold dear. So it is with immense gratitude and respect that we recognize and honor him today. Please join me in welcoming and celebrating our Grand Marshal for Cotton Days 2025, the one and only Lamar Miller. we have a few things for you here. This is a plaque and a painting of Washington City that was done just a year ago.
Yeah, I see that. Well, thank you.
Would you like to say anything to this
Wait
crowd?
just a minute.
Okay.
Recap. Yeah. Well, it's been an honor to be able to show to this honor, and I certainly appreciate it and thankful for it, and thankful for this for being with me and helping me out. I was born and raised in Washington, and like I say, all my life, and thankful for St. George, though. And there's no jobs in Washington, so we have to go to St. George to get a job. So we got to have St. George over there. They're their neighbor, be good friends, and yeah, it's been really nice. I think maybe I might be a little bit related to George Washington. My great-grandfather was one of the first ones to come into Washington. He was Washington Lafayette Jolly. Now I think we might be connected there a little bit someplace, but we'll let it go at that, and thank you, all of you.
You know, I think Lamar said it best. We are very grateful for all of our neighbors and friends. I think we failed to recognize Mayor Hoster's here next to Councilman Tanner there. We're grateful for all of you here. And what more is, this was an absolute collaborative project. I remember when the Red Cliffs Utah Temple was announced, which required the realignment of 3650 South in Washington and 1450 South in St. George, which meant that a road that used to go straight through here needed to curve up around the new site for the temple. So Washington and St. George collaborated on that, and once the road was nearing completion, I reached out to Mayor Randall and said, this road fittingly connects our interdependence and our cities, because this road will eventually connect the entire east side all the way to the west side of the county. At least this section ought to have a common name. And so we thought about that and we talked about it, and one morning Mayor Randall calls me with just an inspired name for the road, and she said, Mayor, I feel strongly that we should name this road George Washington Boulevard. Not only does it connect the names of our cities at the point where our cities connect, but it also pays tribute to our founding father, George Washington. So I really appreciated that. I remember Dick Whitehead and Carmen Snow, others reaching out to me and saying, Jerry Anderson is at it again. He's got this amazing statue of George Washington that he's molding and sculpting, and we need a place. And at the time, I had kind of pitched to my council that this little 0.6 acre remnant piece was good for nothing, because the road alignment meant that the utility still ran under it. So it was kind of a scrap piece of property. So we thought, how could we beautify this and make this be something meaningful to the community? So we got kicking around the idea of a pocket park, and then with Dick and Carmen reaching out and suggesting that the city or somebody ought to purchase this statue, I reached out to my friend Mayor Randall. I reached out to the commissioners, and they were gracious enough to go in thirds on the statue itself. I twisted the arm of my council a little bit, and they allocated some RAP funding for the beautification of the garden and plaza area. Still wasn't quite enough to get us over the finish line, and so once again we turned to my friends. The commissioners agreed to help us get us over the line with some TRT funding. So we really appreciate that. I thought the Youth Council did an amazing job in talking about the intentional features of this. I do want to thank the America 250 Committee. In particular, I want to thank Valerie King with the Daughters of the American Revolution. She was an important part of this, and it was just a really nice collaborative project. I think, as I say thanks, and I know we want to hear the Attorney General, so I think what I'll do is just kind of in closing, encourage you to spend some time here, either later today or on your own, and read these plaques. As you notice, this is the first phase. This part is done. There are additional phases that are on blank canvas to continue to tell not only our nation's history, but our proud Dixie heritage, our story of farming and resilience and grit, of growing cotton and other crops here in this unforgiving desert. But as we focus on the George Washington part of this plaza, let me just read what the plaques say. It said, dedicated exactly 250 years after the commencement of the American Revolutionary War, in honor of our founding father and first president George Washington, for whom our city was named, may Washington City, and I would add all of Washington County, remain a place of freedom, patriotism, and prosperity. Now, to the marker here on your left. This is from the Revolutionary War Patriots, Daughters of the American Revolution. This marker commemorates the men and women who achieved American independence. These patriots, each believing in the noble cause of liberty, valiantly strove to found a nation, 1775 to 1783. As I said, the remainder of this plaza, of this pocket park, is a blank canvas. It's going to tell a story of our agriculture, our heritage. At some point, people will wonder, why do they call this area the fields? And so we look forward to telling about the open ditch canal and the alfalfa and the diversion dam and the rest of our story. But in order to fund that, we had this idea of doing commemorative bricks. If you'll notice, kind of behind here, it circles the back. These are commemorative bricks that we call the Pathway of Patriots, and they are appropriately tied to the year 1776. So we will be selling them for $177.60, unless you want to pay $1,776. All amounts are accepted. Contact Jordan Hess. Jordan, can you raise your hand? I'm not sure where you are. jhess@washingtoncity.org. And we would be grateful for your participation and donation on helping us continue to build out the plaza. At this time, it is my pleasure to invite the very talented, the very skilled, and the very local Jerry Anderson to come forward, along with the Attorney General Derek Brown, all elected officials, Chamber of Commerce, Nick Whitehead, Valerie King. We'll have the Minutemen here. We are going to do the ribbon cutting. Following the ribbon cutting, we will move directly into the statue unveiling. Lamar Miller, if you'll come forward too as part of this ribbon cutting.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Jerry Anderson, and I'm pleased to be here, and I want to thank all those that have made this possible. What an honor for this city and for this area and for George Washington. And for all those people that have come to see the unveiling, I hope you'll come back. And I'd like to tell Dick Whitehead and Carmen Snow that I appreciate what they've done, raise all the money to do this. This wasn't easy. A lot of money here spent. Okay, this will be my 80th statue that I've done around Utah, and possibly one of my better ones. And let's see. What I've done with George Washington is a little different than what they've done back east in Washington, D.C. They've made him somber and no smile, as they did during the 18th and 19th century. But I thought maybe this one, George Washington, would be in an area where he's smiling and he's got his hand out for people to shake his hand and feel more comfortable with the George Washington of the day. Okay, well, let's see. We're going to unveil it now. I'd like to call my boy Dolan and Dale to come up and help me. This is Dolan. He's an inspector. And then my boy Dale is a millionaire from California. All right, boys, I'm going to let you do it. Take care of the flag. George Washington.
Looks beautiful. I want to be the first one to shake his hand. Thank you so much. Beautiful statue. Wonderful work. We're really grateful to have your 80th statue here in Washington City. Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to have a special musical number being performed by Emily Diaz-Azevedo Brown, accompanied by her father, Lex Diaz-Azevedo. And this song is called Hymn to America. And I'm going to let Emily introduce the song.
In 1976, my father, Lex Diaz-Azevedo, and his fellow composer or lyricist, who's actually a resident of Washington County, Doug Stewart, wrote a musical called Threads of Glory, and it featured this song, Hymn to America. And as we kick off Cotton Days, it's Patriots and Pioneers. And our founding fathers recognized God's hand in the founding of America. And our pioneer forefathers and foremothers who came and settled here also recognized that influence and truly believed that honoring God and being a people who lived God's commandments would bless our country. And that's consistent with the life of President George Washington. Anything else we want to say about this song?
Marie Osmond sang this at the inauguration of President Reagan.
Marie Osmond sang this song at the inauguration of President Reagan. Fun facts from the composer. So I share with you today this prayer and this love song to our country. Okay. I see a land decreed by God Himself, a land of liberty, a chosen land to those of destined birth, to herald truth and ensign to the earth, America, a burning flame, a light to gather faithful once again, and far beyond when nations lie in dust at last, I see her banner in the sun. America, arise and sing a righteous song again. Come worship Him, your God and King, and be strong again. America, come raise your praises to the Lord who made you great and led you by the hand. America, America, arise again. And far beyond where nations lie in dust at last, I see her banner blazing on a sea of glass.
I could listen to another song, actually. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your talents. Derek Brown was elected as Utah's Attorney General in November 2024 and assumed office in January of this year. He is a prominent Utah attorney and former chairman of the Utah Republican Party with a fervent desire to safeguard the integrity of the United States Constitution. He has practiced law with two of the largest law firms in the country and served as a law clerk with the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Derek served as a member of the Utah State House of Representatives from 2011 to 2014. While serving as a member of the legislature, Derek served on the House Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Committee, as well as the House Judiciary Committee. When called upon by Senator Mike Lee, Derek voluntarily left the legislature to become Senator Lee's Deputy Chief of Staff and Utah State Director. There, he joined Senator Lee in his daily fight to restore constitutionality-limited government to our nation and protect Utah's 10th Amendment rights. Derek and his wife, Emily, are both accomplished musicians. They met through music, he on the piano and Emily singing. When not working, they are at home around the piano with their 4 children, and I'll add this, or at their second home here in Washington City. Attorney General Derek Brown.
Thank you. As the mayor mentioned, this is exactly 250 years from the beginning of the American Revolution. But something I'd like to add is it's also 250 years from the beginning of the American experiment. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better." So America has always been one great, large, groundbreaking experiment. An experiment in self-government, an experiment in the rule of law, and an experiment in liberty. And I might add that we are still in the middle of that experiment. And one of the thrills of an experiment is the not knowing how it will turn out. So today we are here to honor and remember someone I like to call our first experimenter in chief, George Washington. He literally built from the ground up the office of the President of the United States, how we view it now. And one of the things he did that I loved is he stepped up, he served, and then he stepped aside for someone else. Now, we all know that he served for 2 terms as president, and then he stepped aside and he went back to his home, as was mentioned earlier today by these great student council members. He went back to his home in Mount Vernon. But something we may not remember is that this was not the first time Washington had voluntarily given up power. For those of you that remember, if you've ever been to how many of you have been to the United States Capitol, the Rotunda, been inside the Rotunda? Great. If you picture in your mind, there are lots of paintings, but there's a very large one, 18 feet wide, 12 feet tall, entitled General Washington Resigning His Commission. Now, this was an important moment, and I lived and worked in D.C. and worked in the Capitol for many years, and it wasn't until recently that I realized the importance of this moment and why there's a painting of it. But this very weak Confederation of States gave General Washington immense power. And the hope was that he would use that power to win the war and return back that power when it was over. And win the war, he did. He won the hearts and minds of not just America, but of the men who served in his army. They loved him, and he was loyal to them. And one of my favorite stories of him, and if you look at this statue and picture him with his hand out, think about this. There was a moment when he was on a very rainy day, he was riding his horse, and he came by a group of soldiers who were trying to lift a beam high up in the air. And there was an individual shouting orders at them. And he said after a few moments to this individual, "Hey, why aren't you helping them?" And his response was, "Well, don't you know, I'm the corporal." And Washington said, I understand that. And he dismounted, he went over, he helped these men raise the beam, and as he left, he said, quote, if you should need help again, call on Washington, your commander-in-chief, and I will come. So in September of 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed, the war was over, and Washington had effectively led the forces that had defeated the most powerful military force on the planet. Great Britain now recognized America as an independent sovereign country. This was a new superpower in America, except there wasn't a leader, was there? There was this loose-knit coalition of states. And so here's the question. If you're Washington, after risking everything and having tens of thousands of your men die, do you give the power back? What do you do with it? The history of the world is the history, as you know, of tyrants conquering lands, amassing power, and keeping their power. After all, do you know what a revolution is? Think of a revolution as in terms of a tire. You start here, you go around the revolution, and 360 degrees later, you are where? Right back where you started. Nothing has changed except maybe the faces in power. The unique thing about the American Revolution, it wasn't a standard revolution of 360 degrees. It was 180. And this is why it's very interesting. There were questions about what would Washington do? Would he give the power back? And in fact, when King George III was specifically told, General Washington is likely to give the commission back, he famously said, and I quote, if he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world. If he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world. So think of that. You're Washington. Do you risk it on this great experiment? On December 23rd of that year, he gave it back. That is why this painting is so significant. It's the first time in modern history someone has amassed that kind of power and conquered and then stepped aside, all for an experiment. In fact, that's the word he used. In his inaugural address, he said, and I quote, the preservation of the sacred fire of liberty and the destiny of the Republican model of government were staked on the experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people. And in this experiment, no one person is indispensable. Everyone has inalienable rights. That's so unique. This was the first time this had ever happened. Inalienable literally means they cannot be taken from you and I. They are God-given. They can't be taken by a person, a group, or a governor, or a government, rather. And so that's why 8 years later, he was in a position of being president of the United States, and rather 8 years after he had served, he again gave it back. Gave it back in favor of this experiment. So here we are, 228 years after Washington, for the second time, returned this power. And so it's time that we look to ourselves. This experiment in self-governance, is it working? It literally requires that we govern ourselves. Are we governing ourselves, or are we simply indulging ourselves and our pride? The experiment is ongoing, and this is why Ronald Reagan once said, freedom is never more than one generation away from, what was the word? I heard it, extinction. Never more than one generation away from extinction. There are approximately 195 countries in this world. All of them have leaders. Many have leaders that are sacrificed. But none of them have ever had a Washington. Because Washington gave his life in honor and in favor of the American idea. America is an idea. And the execution, as we know, hasn't always been perfect. Sometimes the idea is better than the execution, but we work and we strive and we improve and we do all that we can in the defense of those inalienable rights. So today we honor that idea put in motion by many of the founders of our country, but no one more important than George Washington. Many of them were pivotal, but George Washington played a unique role, and that is why this county is named for him. This is why this city is named for him, and there are so many things, including this street, that are named for the one person without whom this experiment literally could not happen, and after which most of the other countries' freedom documents in the world are also patterns. So today, we honor him, we honor you. I honor you for your role in that ongoing experiment of liberty. And today, let us mostly honor that great experimenter in chief, George Washington, that one person in the early development of our country who was willing to step up, serve his country, and then return home. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend Derek Brown, our Attorney General. Thank you. As we close up today, I hope you can all, we've invited you to come back and walk around these grounds. And tonight, if you look to this place in the sky, you'll see two giant beams, one if by land, two if by sea. And you'll be able to see these two giant beams of light that will shine as high as you can see. So make sure you look to this Washington Plaza as the sun goes down tonight. As we close, we're going to have one final musical number by Emily Azevedo Brown. Their two sons, Zachary and Alex, and they'll be accompanied by their husband and father, Attorney General Derek Brown, after which we'll have a gun salute by the Sons of the American Revolution, and then we'd invite you to partake in some refreshments. And one last plea, come to Cotton Days this weekend. All of the events will be held up at Veterans Park Friday and Saturday. Thank you so much for being here.
If tomorrow all the things were gone that I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, there's a pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say, hey, that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land.